Last year, Libya was in an all-out war with itself. Warlord Khalifa Haftar, armed with Gulf weapons and money, launched a brutal assault to take Libya's capital, Tripoli. But that campaign failed and was marred by indiscriminate attacks on civilians that left hundreds dead and thousands displaced. But now there seems to be a sliver of hope. The Security Council has called on Libya's warring parties to come to a political solution after ratifying a UN-brokered ceasefire reached in Geneva. Libya's government of national accord, which is recognized internationally, has been battling Haftar's forces for more than a year. But since repelling his illegal militias from the capital, fighting has bogged down mostly into a stalemate. As part of the ceasefire, the warring sides agreed that foreign troops and mercenaries would leave. But Libya's defense minister said the ceasefire wouldn't affect the GNA's ties and cooperation with Turkey. So will this latest ceasefire hold, and can Libya find a lasting political solution? And to answer that, joining me now from Ankara is Murat Aslan. He is a security analyst and a researcher at the SETA Foundation. And from Istanbul, Guma el Gamaty. He is a Libyan academic and politician who heads the Taghyeer party in Libya and is a member of the UN-backed Libyan political dialogue process. So, gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. Guma, is agreement holding so far, and how it is different than the previous ones which were breached?
Well, yes, the ceasefire agreement is holding. Let's remember that there has not been any fighting for almost a few months now, since the Haftar militias have been pushed back all the way to Sirte and Jufra. So, in effect, what has been signed a few days ago is just making it official what is a de facto ceasefire. So, so far, so good. Now that Haftar has, or his representatives have agreed to sign this official ceasefire, this is a big shift on his side. Remember, back in Moscow in January,
yes,
he refused to sign any ceasefire, whereas Sarraj was happy to do so under the auspices and the guarantee of both Turkey and and Russia. So now we see a big shift in Haftar's position, obviously after he was defeated heavily in his war attempt to take over power by force in Tripoli. So yes, the ceasefire is holding. There has been no fighting for a few months now.
Okay, Murat, Turkish President Erdogan questioned the viability of this agreement, ceasefire, saying it was not made at the highest level. So he remains skeptical. Is he right to be suspicious of something, or maybe warlord Khalifa Haftar?
Diplomatic agreements are always good, though, if it offers a kind of opportunity to exploit the situation, then question marks arise, as you know. So I think President Erdogan is really concerned if anybody in Libya will exploit the established status quo, and actually very concerned about the outcomes after the dialogue forum is realized, because current picture in this forum is 61% favoring Haftar's. That means President Erdogan is really focused on the outcomes that will downgrade the position of Tripoli government.
So have all sides, Guma, concerned, been included in the process?
Well, I think there has been concerns and caution about whether all the parts of the agreement will be implemented. I think implementation is the key word, and in this sense and in this regard, President Erdogan was absolutely right to highlight caution and concerns that it might not be implemented, because one of the key things it talks about this agreement is the withdrawal of all
foreign fighters.
All mercenaries and foreign fighters from Libya, totally removed from Libya within 60 days.
Is it viable? Is this viable? Is this timetable viable? And does it cover, for example, arms sales by other countries to Libya, like the United Arab Emirates, France, Egypt, and Russia?
Well, the removal of foreign fighters and mercenaries will never be viable, and it will never be implemented if Russia and the Emiratis do not deliver that. Because where do these mercenaries come from? Almost over 3,000 are directly from Russia as Wagner mercenaries. Over 6,000 of them are Janjaweed from Sudan, which the Emiratis brought in to fight on Haftar's side, and the Emiratis pay for them. There are hundreds who are from Chad as well. So if these sponsor countries like the Russia and the Emiratis do not push and exert pressure to remove these fighters, then they will never be removed. I don't think Haftar does not have any control over these mercenaries. Russia has a direct control over the Wagner fighters. So in a sense, we are dealing with Russia rather than dealing with Haftar, who is a mere proxy.
So, Murat, how will this agreement impact Turkey's military cooperation with the legitimate government?
Ministry of Defense of Libyan state agreed that there will be no effect of these agreements upon Turkish-Libyan relationship, because currently there is an ongoing training process in Turkey, and also Turkish officers in Libya are directly mentoring armed groups, mainly under GNA. That means there will be no effect on it. That actually it's from the Libyan side that they claim it. But on the other hand, this forum that will be held on 9th of November is very critical, because they will take some decisions over there. And I do not know to what extent it will affect Turkish-Libyan relations. So I'm optimistic, though we must be cautious.
So, Guma, it's been reported that oil installations at Ras Lanuf and Sidar ports would be resumed output in a very short period of time. So how will oil revenues be distributed in this process?
Well, the same way as there have always been. The NOC, the National Oil Corporation, is the sovereign institution that's in charge of the whole oil sector in Libya, including production and export. The revenue of the oil exports goes first to an account belonging to the Libya Foreign Bank, and then within a few weeks after that, it goes straight to the central bank in Tripoli, which is the only Libya central bank that's recognized by the whole world. So there has not been any change in the mechanism so far. However, I think this is a temporary arrangement. The resumption of oil exports is a welcome move. Now production is up to a level of about 800,000 barrels a day. The normal level should be around 1.5 million. So we're over half of the normal level, and until we have a comprehensive political agreement which tackles the issue of wealth distribution, then the mechanism is still the same and it has not changed, and it's the oil revenues, oil export and revenues are managed by the legitimate GNA government in Tripoli, and the oil revenues go to the central bank in Tripoli.
So, Guma, how could Sarraj's resignation impact this process? We know that the High Council of State and House of Representatives have both called on Sarraj to delay his resignations. What will he do if he resigns? Who is going to replace him? Very shortly, please.
Well, he's not going to leave office until there is an agreement out of the political process or dialogue that's going to start officially in Tunisia in about 10 days. On November 9th, the Libya Political Dialogue Forum will start officially. It might go on for a couple of weeks or a bit more. Hopefully, it will reach a comprehensive agreement on the next stage in Libya, including a replacement of Sarraj and his colleagues with a new presidential council of 3 members only and a separate prime minister. So Sarraj will remain in office and will remain in charge until a replacement body has been named out of the Libya dialogue process, and then that new body or the new names will have the legitimacy to take over from Sarraj.
Yes. So we know that Turkey is cautious towards this agreement, but on the other hand, Russia has not yet officially weighed in on the ceasefire. What are Moscow's expectations from this process?
There are many question marks for the Russian side, because first they reject the presence of Russian soldiers on the ground. On the other hand, Wagner Group is clearly a Russian state-controlled organization in the form of a private military company. Then any political attempt to marginalize foreign fighters will be repelled or maybe subjected to further rules by Russians. That's That's an expectation. On the other hand, Russia wants to be at the Eastern Mediterranean Sea, and Libya will be the second leg of the overall Russian strategy. I do not think that they will not give up from the Libyan theater unless they are forced or there is no excuse to stay, in Libya.
Yes.
So we will see. We will see, though. I'm not that much optimistic for the Russian tendency to leave Libya. Once they step up, that means they will prefer to stay over there.
So, Guma, last question. Are you hopeful that peace will be restored in your country in a short time?
Well, I cannot be entirely hopeful. I'm reasonably optimistic that there is enough international will to support an outcome by the Libyan group that will meet in Tunisia, 75 of them, and that if they reach a political agreement to take us to the next stage, which hopefully will lead to elections in about a year and a half, then the international community will endorse that agreement and will support it, and it will ensure that it is implemented. Unless there is that international agreement, that there is international support, and that the international community will underpin and guarantee the implementation of any agreement, then unfortunately, I cannot be very optimistic.
All right, gentlemen. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you very much for joining us on Straight Talk.